Ding, ding, ding. This is exactly the point. The fated mating bonds, they're not an indicator of love. It's two separate things. On the one hand, you have a mating bond. You have two people who are bound together by fate, by higher powers, by, in this case, the primordial soup bowl. It doesn't matter whether they like each other. It doesn't matter whether they're compatible. The cauldron threw them together. That is the mating bond. On the other hand, you have love, you have a connection, you have chemistry. Those things are separate from the mating bond. Whether you have them, it's extra. It's not a requirement. If Tamlin and Rhysand, their own accounts about their parents is to be believed. Which is why certain couples need a little bit of time to get their shit in order, because the mating bond is not a substitute for getting your emotional shit in order. That being said, I think that the idea of the mating bond and actual love being separate things would be terrifying to the actual mated couples, like the couples who are actually mated and they have recognized their mating bond, priestess blessed, cauldron blessed mating bonds. Wow, I can't talk today. Because the inevitability of their connection, of their bond, doesn't necessarily mean that the relationship is going to work out. Like, Feyre and Rhysand are mated. They went through the entirety of A Court of Mist and Fury, solidifying that mating bond. She could still leave him. Before the Faysand girlies come for me, I am not saying that Feyre is going to leave Rhysand. I actually think that out of all three Archeron sisters, Feyre is the one who is the most bonded to her mate, and she would never leave Rhysand. Like, there is no scenario where I see Feyre leaving Rhysand, for better or for worse. And while I think Sarah does like happy endings, I can see her, because there is such a difference between the mating bond and an emotional connection. I could see a mated couple getting kind of dicey for a little bit. I don't think it'll be Feyre and Rhysand. Again, Feyre is too enmeshed with Rhysand at this point. But if Nesta and Cassian don't get their shit in order, I could see them having issues and them splitting up, at least temporarily. All this to say, we're putting a lot on these mating bonds when they might not mean quite as much, at least in regards to Endgame, as we think that they do. They are shaking out a certain way, and like the mated couples are getting together and they're staying together, that kind of thing. But the mating bonds aren't necessarily an end-all be-all, which is why it's good that we have a couple that is not being driven by a biological bond. It's good that we have a couple that is not being compelled, because then we can see the difference between a couple that is not being compelled and a couple that is. And we can decide like for ourselves, or Sarah could show us in the writing how real the mated bonds love, the mated bond couple, I can't talk today. How real the mated bonded couples, how real their love is. Again, I do think that the mated couples that we have in ACOTAR, they all love each other. Nessian loves each other. Phazan loves each other. But I would hate to see the mated couples being used as an example to tear a couple that isn't mated down before they even had a chance to have a book, since we know their book is next.